Layovers, your weekly dose of aviation innovation.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is Paul Papadimitriou.
Hello, everybody. This is Alex Hunter.
We'll be your pilots for this show about the news, the startups, and the technologies defining the modern air travel experience.
Our flight time today, 1 hour and 3 minutes, and we expect an on-time arrival. Coming up on this flight, Air France retires its last 747. Uber might enter the travel planning game. Will commercial aircrafts ditch one pilot? The most entertaining man in the aviation industry, Qatar Airways CEO, an app to switch seats, a motorized carry-on that follows you around. Airbus announces strong results in a technology for drone avoidance.
As we reach our cruising altitude, I'm going to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's turn on those noise-canceling headphones.
Flight 32 to Oslo.
Oslo in January. I don't know if I'd want to do that, even though it's a beautiful city. That's a cold place.
Well, I've actually done it, not the city, but the airport. And that was quite a story, I'll tell you. First, so Happy New Year.
Yeah, welcome to 2016.
We haven't recorded for a while because suddenly I had to travel. I'll come to that in a second. So sorry to our listeners. We promised that 2016, well, try again to do. We did 31 shows last year.
That's not so bad.
Yeah, actually, yeah. It's not weekly, but it's not all bi-weekly. It's cool. And also, we have great guests already lined up for this year. The problem is always so that because a lot of people ask me, oh, but you don't have enough guests. It's like, yeah, but when we travel, these shows, when it's just you and me, they're easy to set up. When you have to set up a guest, it's actually much harder. Yeah. But we'll do them over the next quarter. We'll have a few very nice guests. And a few shout outs. I want to say shout outs to Kalina, Aziza, and of course, Gen, as always, because they've been saying, of course, that the show is great. They've been listening to the show. Gen is feeding me stories as always. I promise you, Gen will cover PVG's or Shanghai Airport very soon.
I'm going there in April, so looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to Gen because you absolutely have to meet him. And also, we'll talk about that in the end of the show, but we are about to travel almost together. That'll be very fun.
Yeah.
Lots of new airports for you and me. Yeah, so I traveled. I had suddenly to go to the US, to New York for work. And so that was very last minute. I was looking at my options. And I think this is something you saw as well. We were mad at this. I was trying to go from, of course, Heathrow or Gatwick to New York, whichever airport. And I was looking at Madrid, Amsterdam, Paris, all the hubs, Warsaw. It's almost half the price in London. And that really is crazy, right?
It's infuriating. And it's really starting to get on my nerves because, you've run into this. I've got a pretty epic trip coming up in the spring that requires me to bounce all over the world. And it's the worst kept secret in the world that if you leave from anywhere in Europe that's not London, you're going to get a much, much better price. I mean, just for an example, the one that I found the other day that I sent to you, which was, I think, Oslo to Singapore via Doha on Qatar Airways in business class. Round trip was about 800 quid.
That's crazy, right?
You try that out of London and it's going to be 2,500 pounds.
Yeah,
same metal, same service. And you're actually going further when you leave out of Oslo. It's ridiculous. It's getting out of hand.
I was comparing, Jay. So I was comparing business class to New York. And there was... From London, pretty much everyone was £4,000 and more. And you could find 1,800 in other cities in Europe. So it's really like, but it also shows that Heathrow is probably, there's not an ability to have competition because there's no more slots.
No, absolutely. And I think we're going to Boston and New York to film Attaché next month. And Greg, who I do the show with, has found a great fare. There's great fares to the East Coast if you are willing to stay for a Saturday night, or in his case, I think he's going on WOW, which we'll talk about a little bit later via Iceland. But it's getting to the point where I am more than happy to fly to somewhere else in Europe to get that outbound flight. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if a runway is going to solve it, but something has to happen because London as an airport infrastructure capital is really losing its clout.
Absolutely. So I did that exactly like you did. So I looked at my options. I wanted to fly Star Alliance because I have status. I also looked, to be honest, at Emirates from Milan, but the flights were full, even though now they have the A380. for my dates. I mean, not full every day. So I ended up using SAS, which is a company I haven't used in forever. SAS is this Scandinavian airline. So basically, it's a co-owned airline by Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Not Finland. Finland has its own Finnair. So I, on purpose, chose to fly with the new A330. I say new because the product is very different. You could feel a little bit like Turkish. They have the local products, the European short haul, medium haul product that I used to go to. I first connected through Copenhagen on the way to New York. You could feel it's an old plane. The crew is also very, the flag carrier kind of stigma. Whereas when you fly the long haul product, wow, honestly, wow. So I got upgraded in business class for that leg. And honestly, it's one of the best business products I've experienced. The hard products of the seat. Probably over Star Alliance, Singapore Airlines must be better. Probably Swiss, the new Swiss one must be probably edging.
Looks great.
But this is better than Lufthansa. The new Lufthansa is, I really dislike what they've done. So
they don't talk about it, do they?
Product. No, not really.
They're not doing what Finnair do and saying, come up to Helsinki and enjoy, because they've got the A350, so they've been doing a big marketing push. Perhaps that's what I'm thinking about. But you never hear SAS saying, fly through Copenhagen.
But they have somewhat of a bad rep. Flag carrier. They don't have a big fleet. They had also financial issues at some point, even because you just mentioned that. At some point, there were the rumors that Finnair wanted to acquire SAS. So meaning that they were not in such a good place. Now they're pushing with this new product. You could feel that, the crew was good, honestly, but it was still a bit of the old style flag carrier stigma. We're not talking about an Asian Airlines or a Middle Eastern Airlines. It's still a little bit, but it was great. The IFE is really, really, really solid. They have stuff like, how these airlines, they put like these weird jack connectors if you want to use your own headphones.
That drives me crazy.
But then they made everything simple. There were USB, multiple jacks, you one on the screen and one next to your seat. So they made everything easy for you. If you want to use your own devices, that's fine. I tried the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi was working as well. It was free in front, and you had to pay a little something if you were behind. So really, really cool product. So I will encourage you to try it. It's only the A330-300 that has a new product for long haul. All the others don't. And on the way back, connected through Oslo, which is the airport we're going to cover at the end of the show. And again, from Oslo to London, you could feel that plane was a 737. I think it was like 45 years old. I'm kidding, obviously, but that was really the old product. This is what I meant when I kind of had reminisce from Turkish, where they have all these products that come from. But I mean, it was cool. Talking about the Scandinavia to show that, they are, although they have very solid economies, it's hard for them. And I just learned that Estonian Air, so from Estonia, obviously, just went basically bankrupt. So to show that it's not easy, I know that Finnair had also problems. Like you just said, Finnair is now pushing to be this kind of hub to Asia. And you're thinking about using them, by the way, right?
Yes. Yeah, Finnair is very competitive from London. But here's the crazy thing. From London, Helsinki, Singapore, and then I'm going up to Shanghai and coming back, that round trip was very competitive. If you just leave out of Helsinki, it adds £1,000 onto the price. I don't really understand how that works by originating in Heathrow, but still going through Helsinki and jumping on the same plane. you save £1,000. But one of those legs is the A350, which looks good. It's this.
Lucky you.
Yeah, so we'll see. I haven't booked it yet. There's a few options I'm looking at. As you know, it's kind of become a mild obsession of mine. But yeah, I'm excited to try them out. I've only flown them short haul.
Yeah, because we've been discussing about booking flights for the last week almost daily because I was booking my next trip, which I'll come to later as well. Oh, yeah. And one thing that was really interesting, because I sent you a picture, it's the first time I haven't had a 3-point seatbelt on that seat. So I know that because I've been told by a friend, I forgot who told me that apparently United and Cathay have this system as well. But I never had, I was looking, I was like, what? It's like a car, basically, if you want to understand what the 3-point is. It's very strange, right?
Yeah, it is strange.
But you can remove the third, so you can remove the one that's on your chest. You can remove it after takeoff. So there's a separation.
I think it's because they're not, it's not a herringbone format, right?
No.
So I think it's because there's nothing in front of you for you to brace against. Like the normal brace position is you put your hands or your head up against the seat in front of you, and you don't have that in those types of layout. But I always think that's interesting because you've got the 3-point, and then on the herringbones, a lot of them have the airbag.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. The airbag. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So I was on the A333, which is a pretty popular airplane,
Very
and
popular.
Airbus just announced their results. So, so I was following the results on Twitter. There were many people that were actually tweeting about it, and the CEO sounded. I mean, the entire people that were actually announcing the results sounded extremely confident because they announced pretty cool numbers.
They did announce some very strong numbers in very specific sections and glossed over the areas where they are not doing so well. But in terms of 2015, they really did kind of outperform Boeing on a lot of areas.
Yeah.
In the single aisle, the 737 outsold the regular A320, but the Neo smashed the 737 MAX 67%. And the 321, wow. This is crazy. The 321 Neo picked up 98.3% of the market against the 737-9. Now, granted, the 737-9 isn't really a thing because Boeing have other products that fill in that niche. Boeing's dominance in the twin engine, wide body twin engine, that's a very important differentiation, is a lot bigger. I mean, they're still doing well. And that's because of Boeing's freighter. The 777 and the 767 freighter markets are so strong. But Airbus don't even have a freighter program. Boeing own 95% of that market.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just a smashing. And what's interesting about this whole order book for 2015 for Airbus is it sounds very positive. It sounds very bullish. But Liam News, which is a great website, they have a fairly controversial reputation, but they do good analytical work. And they've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb and kind of reiterated a lot of the positives that Airbus have come out with, but also highlighted some of the negatives that obviously Airbus didn't talk about. And that what I find interesting here is the A350. And I mentioned this to you the other day.
Yeah. When
I saw these numbers, how are the A330 and the A350 going to compete? The A330 is performing, as you say, incredibly well. Specifically the A330-900.
Yep.
Not the A330-800. They didn't have a single order. But interestingly, the A350, the sales on that have stalled.
Yeah, that's also, I was curious about that one.
There were only 16 gross orders in 2015, and 19 cancellations in favor of the A330-900. So people were saying, I don't want the 350 anymore. I want this new 330 that you've just released. One of the main reasons for this apparently is that the backlog for A350 extends through 2020.
Yeah, it's very long apparently.
So if you want one, you're going to have to wait 4 to 5 years. But Boeing, for the 787, which is the 350's competing product, they also have a long backlog, but they're cranking out planes quickly and
quicker than they thought. Actually,
much quicker than they thought, and they still racked up 100 new orders for the airplane in 2015. It feels like they spent a lot of time marketing the 380, and Liam has also kind of figured this out, and it's not working.
Yeah, it's not working. I mean, they had no sales.
They had no sales.
So the CEO during the presentation said that there were 3 that were on order now from an undisclosed buyer. We don't know what it is. We don't know. It could be VIP. Could be. We have no idea if it's actually a firm order. He said that. He said he was very happy with the program. He said that the A380 program was break even. Although he added that apparently it's break even because of the exchange rate between the euro and the dollar, which means that it's not as if it's just more than it sells like fire, because it doesn't. I mean, we know that Emirates has a shit ton of them in order. If you look at the order book, but no one else is buying. And there was a rumor that ANA was about to place orders for the A380, but apparently this is highly disputed. That it might just be thin air. We're not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of this, because there's a lot of sources saying that because of the Skymark acquisition, they've cut a deal to get these A380s that have been in limbo for years, really.
Yeah,
that were manufactured. The airframes exist. They're built. They're sitting in storage somewhere. And then there was this solid thing saying that they were going to, the ANA, as part of this deal, we're going to get the A380s, and they were going to expand to Hawaii, et cetera, et cetera. And then ANA came out and said, that's not entirely true. And that's it. They didn't say anything else. So
maybe they're discussing a big discount. And as long as they don't have the big discount, they're not going to see something like that. But they have a lot of orders in the book because I think they reach almost 7,000 planes that they're going to deliver through 2020 or something. Yeah. It's really amazing.
I think for me, the takeaway on this is Boeing and Airbus are both doing extremely well. And between the two of them, they're competing on almost all airframe types. Some Airbus is winning, some Boeing is winning, but they're both doing extremely well.
Yeah, it's true. And Boeing, just that people know, Boeing will announce its own financial results, I think January 27th. So probably by the next time we record, we'll have also a segment on them. Interestingly, Heathrow was disclosed their numbers for last year, so they also had a very good year. But the tidbit that really made me interested is that they added 1.6 million passengers, and most of them actually came because of the A380. So basically because of Emirates, let's be honest. Airbus, during this financial results, said that 8% of the traffic of Heathrow comes from A380s.
That's incredible, isn't it?
So it really solves the issue for a capacity airport like Heathrow to have these bigger jets.
Yeah.
Because though I don't see it, growing at some point, if no one buys any A380s anymore, I mean, it's not going to happen.
No.
But you said you found a story about Virgin Atlantic.
Yeah, this really surprised me. Apparently, Virgin Atlantic is going to order up to 12 A350, which I don't think anybody expected this. They were evaluating the 350 and the 777 as a way to replace the 747s, which breaks my heart because they formed the backbone of Virgin's operation since day one. And it sounds like they've landed on the 350. Virgin Atlantic are doing better now. I think on the back of this relationship with Delta, they're starting to post profit. They've done some cost cutting. I haven't flown on them for about 8 months, but they're still Virgin. I still have a soft spot in my heart for them.
Of course.
But they could get them as early as 2018 or 2019. And the speculation is that the A380 orders that they had on the books and kept putting off, frankly, because they couldn't afford them, will then convert to 350s, which means they'll jump the queue a little bit for these 350s. But boy, those planes will look great in a Virgin Atlantic livery.
One more news about Airbus. It was not mentioned during the results, but I found it interesting. We mentioned many times in the show people using drones and having near misses at airports, and Airbus is actually introducing a technology within aircrafts that allow, so it's not lasers, it's not going to destroy a drone in front of you, but apparently allows to take control of a drone or to make them change routes in front of them. So I don't know exactly how it works. I'll put the link in the show notes, but that's an interesting thing. That shows, first of all, that it's an actual problem, because if Airbus invests money in having such a system that much may not be cheap, that means it is an actual problem. But that they're doing that is actually pretty interesting. So it's, I don't know if it's ever going to be bought by airlines, but I think it's a very interesting thing that they do. Moving on to another announcement, that was our favorite entertainer in the airline industry, the Qatar Airways CEO. So they had a presser because they launched a new route through LAX, so Los Angeles. And of course, as always, Al Baker was not short of words against everybody, basically.
He is something else.
So he attacked Delta. He attacked American. And interestingly, when he attacked American, because Delta, it's been these war words back and forth. American, they, like you said many times yourself, Alex, American was always more quiet of the three about this entire thing. And that Qatar Airways is part of One World, same as BA, same, of course, as American. And basically, Al Baker said, you know what, guys, if you guys, American, you're not happy, you can leave One World. Or if you don't want to leave One World, we'll leave One World and we'll take a few others with us and we'll make a new alliance. What the hell?
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I'm amazed that people will work with him. He's like the Larry Ellison and the Mr. Burns of the airline world.
He also said that the new, so that's interesting. So we know that they have a new project for new business seats. He says that he will be arriving. The businesses will have full privacy. So it might almost be a first class seat.
Odd, yeah.
But the people were almost obviously talking about what happened in the back. And for years, Qatar was always like, on the 777, we only have 9 abreast, 9 seats on each row. They are going on 10 seats because at the end, he said so. Qatar Airways is about making money. But where it's interesting is that passengers will not notice the difference. Only airline journalists will do.
So he is working hard to piss off everybody.
Absolutely, it's really fun. He also countered attacks as supposedly it was the old alcohol situation. He says, "Yeah, we are Qatar Airways. We're the biggest alcohol distributor in Qatar." Stuff like. And of course, he ended by saying, "Oh, by the way, we do not discuss strategy with journalists." As dissing pretty much everyone now. And I think you've tried. So you tried booking in Qatar, right? You're also looking at that as an option, correct?
Yeah, I've tried their website. It's okay.
So apparently, and you'll be able to know that if you try again because you haven't booked yet. Apparently now, or maybe it's already there, you can see all the amenities when you book. That includes, of course, the usual Wi-Fi stuff, but even they'll tell you the seat width, the leg room. They tell you every single detail about your flight before you book. I mean, some websites have some, but apparently they will go even further and add everything there. Means they have confidence in the product. But
yes.
A lot of airlines kind of hide, the size of the seat because they know it's scrap, basically. Going to the US, to that other airline that is being bashed by Qatar is United. And you found a very interesting article.
Yeah, Bloomberg have done this fantastic article. It came out just yesterday. It's called United's Quest to Be Less Awful. And it's just sort of looked at their Annus Horribilis of 2015 and dissected really a strong analysis of why I always bash them. It's just been this catalog of errors and frankly a lot of it bad luck. Not all of it, but there's some things. It's like you get a new CEO, he looks really, really sharp, and he's making change, and the unions like him, the staff like him, the customers like him. He's really distilled the problems into solvable problems and not just, oh well, that's how it works. And then the poor guy has a massive heart attack.
Yeah,
he's on leave for a couple of weeks. And then it goes quiet over Christmas. It turns out on January 6th, he had a heart transplant. Munoz, the new CEO, had a heart transplant.
And apparently he will come back. So they
say he's coming back. I would be flabbergasted if he came back. I just can't see it happen.
Job. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I hope for him. I hope.
Yeah, of course.
Very fast. I hope he comes back because he's a very bright guy. But it's true when you read that, it's like, wow, it's they cannot get a break, honestly. But honestly, this merger with Continental has been pretty much a disaster.
Yeah, it hasn't been run well. I mean, Continental wasn't a bad product.
It wasn't. Yeah.
And I think that there was this hope that Continental would bring some of its customer service attitude into United, and that just hasn't happened. A lot of those things have actually been actively discouraged. And so there's an example here saying former Continental employees say they've been discouraged from giving out vouchers to placate unhappy customers. Why would you do that? Why would you, one of your staff is trying to make amends for something that's gone wrong. And I just don't, it's going to take a long time for these guys to figure it out. They've got operational issues with delays that are endemic across their entire domestic route. But this article, and I strongly encourage you to read it, is a really good overview analysis of how it's working.
Yeah, and United
or not working, as the case is.
Yeah, a lot of working. There's a long way to go because there's been a lot of stories last year, including, they forgot to bring a wheelchair to a plane, and the poor person, I remember if it was a he or she, had to crawl outside of the plane. I mean, come on, how are we talking about? It's disgusting, exactly. To go back to a quote from Al Baker, our favorite, "We do not fly old crap secondhand airplanes." That's what he says about.
Well, I think that's true as well. I think, there's an interesting little graph that's put together from data from the American Consumer Satisfaction Index showing in the last 20 years the customer satisfaction levels of the three major airlines in the U.S. And United in 1995 was top of the heap. And you see this sort of meteoric rise of Delta in the last 10 years to be head and shoulders above both American and United. But for me, the most interesting trend here in the last 5 to 7 years, both American and Delta have trended up substantially.
Yeah.
And I think this is this interprets U.S. Airways data as well as American data. Delta's top of the heap. United are trending downwards, which is pretty hard to do.
And to be honest, like I said earlier, I'm a Starline's sort of gold status, so senator it's called on Lufthansa. And it's sad because I avoid United. They're part of my alliance, but on purpose I avoid them. And then, I'm probably losing. So the Air Miles freaks will tell me, Paul, you're crazy. But you know what? I just don't like their product. And I know I'll end up having issues. And I hope it changes because I don't want to hate United. Yeah. I just avoid them at all costs. And it's I find it sad that
they have perfected the art of sucking.
Yeah. Talking about product, since we're between these ME3 and the US 3, so Etihad, which is also a company you're thinking about using.
Yeah.
You really want to try all these.
I do want to try the premium product on the Middle Eastern carriers.
Yeah, I get it. So I've never done Qatar. I hope you do. I've done both the others, but sadly not the very last product from Etihad. But one of the big things for our friends in the US, it was actually Etihad was flying in the US. A lot of their planes, they had a codeshare with Jet Airways, which is an Indian company. And they were actually flying the Jet Airways planes, the 777-300ER, to, for instance, San Francisco. So basically, you were buying an Etihad ticket, but you'd find in a very different kind of product, which has nothing to do with the product that they offer. But finally, Etihad has come out and said, you know what, we're going to introduce our own 777-200 long range. I think they're introducing. So you will be, guys, especially in San Francisco, and we have a lot of friends in San Francisco. If you try Etihad, you'll finally be able to test the real Etihad product. So let us know what you think.
Yeah, which is good because San Francisco, Abu Dhabi is not a short flight.
Really, really not. Talking about code shares, Etihad, the strategy of Etihad is to buy a lot of equity in other airlines. It's how they're growing in Europe and elsewhere. And they had bought stakes in Air Berlin, so in Germany. Interestingly, a German court just ruled that Etihad and Air Berlin were not allowed to code share. That actually destroys Etihad's strategy in Germany.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what to think about this. Is maybe it's a clearly anti-competition ruling.
Do you think it's protectionism?
It's hard to say. There might be protectionism. Or maybe it's part of that spat. The EU, so European countries against the Middle Easterns. So we know that Amsterdam was not willing to give new slots to Emirates. We know that there are stuff like that happening. So I don't know. Could be. Though usually, the courts are independent. We're not, some banana republic where,
true,
just ask the court to do whatever they want. But, they might be, or maybe Etihad just didn't do the competition correctly, the agreements. I don't know exactly. But anyway, that's bad news for Etihad. I'm sure they will appeal that decision, but still, it's bad news for them. And there was, on Airline Reporter, there was a very interesting article, again, for our friends in the US that want to try because they listen to us talking about these airlines. And it's true that you cannot fly them from all cities. There was an article about guessing where Emirates, Qatar, and Etihad would expand in 2016 in the US. It's pretty interesting. Have you read it, Alex?
Yeah, really interesting. And there was a lot of debate about this article on airliners.net,
right?
Breaking it down by each of the carriers and seeing where they're going to go next. And I think it's a really great analysis. And they even end the article with odds on each city for ME3 growth, but they're focusing on ones that have no service. I think I would be amazed if the next Qatar Airways destination isn't San Francisco.
Yeah,
because Emirates and Etihad already fly there, and it's a great connection to India. And there's a huge Indian expat population in San Francisco Bay Area, so I think that will be huge. A lot of the people think Detroit will be the next,
and Denver
and Minneapolis. It seems like the three, but they call Detroit a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's interesting, but we know there's a lot of competition in Detroit, so maybe that's also why. I don't know. It's interesting.
I didn't know Royal Jordanian already fly there, and apparently there's a really large Middle Eastern population in the Detroit area. I didn't know that, but apparently this is just a no-brainer.
And having flown Royal Jordanian, it's not it's not there. It's an older product, so it cannot yet compete with. I say yet because I figure some of these other countries in the Middle East will react at some point, or might react at some point.
Yeah,
but
they have to.
Jordanian is not there yet. It's not comparable to the service you get in Qatar, Etihad, or obviously Emirates. Anyway, good, interesting articles. If you live in the US, you want to see the odds for your city. They all listed there. So, like you said, not the main hubs, mostly cities that have no service. But it's interesting for you guys, for anyone who lives there. So now back to a more emotional state of mind for us, for Alex and myself. Another 747 gets retired. This time it's Air France. It's the last ever 747 for Air France, was retired. They did a big ceremony. So thank you guys at Air France. It was really nice. It was at I think it was at Charles de Gaulle. So they had, of course, the press and media. They did, the firefighter came. They did like this whole parade for them for the last flight. So it was really, really nice. But of course, we're not happy to see another 747 disappear. They also made a video. I'll put on the show notes, a 2-minute video that shows the 40 years of the relationship between the 747 and Air France. You see the uniforms that they used to be, the staff. You see, of course, a life within the aircraft. It's nice.
It's a fitting tribute.
The send off are really nice.
It is nice. They did a lovely, very respectful job, and I think they really acknowledge how critical that airplane has been in their existence.
Yeah, and another article that I concurrently found as well was, I encourage you to take a look. It's called Then and Now, 45 Years of Boeing 747 Passenger Experience. And it's pretty fun to see these pictures of how it was, 747 40 years ago, 45 years ago, 30 years ago. It's just, it shows the evolution of how it's true. You can see that the seats are kind of in the back and becoming like less big, obviously. So it has these old pictures and diagrams from, the seat maps, where seat grew wasn't a thing. So it's a very, very nice one. And you know what? The thing I really like for the 747, and I haven't had the chance of flying one in 3 years, so that really sucks.
Oh, wow.
I really want to go once last time in the nose. It's the only airplane where you can basically fly in the nose when you're like in the very front, and I really want to do that.
Yeah, they if you ever fly on BA, then you're not going to have to worry about that, because they have an extraordinary amount of 747s still left in their fleet and no plans to retire them anytime soon.
Yeah, you found that. It was a fascinating list you found.
So there's a guy on Reddit, on the /aviation subreddit, who does two things. He puts together these pictorial histories of individual airframes. So he track a 727 from when it was delivered to all of the airlines that it served, and it's ended up as a hotel or a house, or it's now beer cans. But he does a really good job of tracking down the stories and the histories. But then he also does this thing where he looks at this particular imager gallery of all of the modern airliner airframes and who is the biggest operator of the type. And so everything from the A318-100, which is Airbus's baby jet, all of the A31X, 2X variants, the 330s, who the biggest operators are for each one. And there's some surprises in here, some no-brainers. British Airways still have 47 747s.
And we said, it was a few episodes ago, we said that they're actually refurbishing them. So they're repainting them, their livery. They're actually changing the seats, the hard product inside. So they're actually expanding their life. They're expanding their life, people say, by actually 10 years, which is bad news for the A380, by the way, because that means the British Airways will not buy anymore. But it's good for us because sadly, I don't have much status on BA, and they are, like we said at the very beginning of the show, expensive from London. But I will make an effort one day. I really want to fly last time a 747. Of course, Lufthansa has the new one, the 800. So that would be also fun to fly. We'll have to find a way, Alex, and you and me, to fly together in the 747.
Yeah, exactly. So on one of these retirement trips. One
of the features that, as a kid, I remember the 747, because back then you could easily go into the cockpit, you would invite in and stuff. There were 3 operators. There were 3 people in the cockpit, which is now, of course, almost not existent anymore. You have 2 people. But we recently learned that in the EU, they're thinking about a new regulation for air traffic that would actually allow aircrafts to be flown by a single pilot. So meaning you'll have only one single person. One clear strategy here is cost cutting, because if you remove one person, and suddenly, of course, it's great great news from maybe their shareholders because they'll have, less cost because salaries are a big cost in like in any industry, but in the airline industry especially. But what I found a little peculiar is that the other argument that the EU is putting forward is that it's a safety thing. So I'm not convinced how you can enhance safety by removing a pilot. I'm not saying that at some point we won't have the electronics taking over, blah, blah, blah. But don't tell me that it's a good excuse, especially after what happened. And I know it was a single accident, but a year after German wings. What do you think?
The vast majority of me thinks this is a terrible idea, but there are some instances where I think you could make a case for it. And one of them is the cockpit resource management
obviously
argument, which is in some cultures, you never question authority. And that has led to accidents. It was
the
one
famous example, Korean Air was that.
Korean Air, Asiana in San Francisco.
Recently, you're right.
As we've talked about in length, that was it wasn't the only factor, but one of the main factors was this cockpit resource management and the first officer's reluctance to challenge the decisions of the captain. So,
but more often than not, this was solved by a lot of the airlines has solved this issue in a lot of where in Asia, to be honest, was bringing a foreign CEO, was bringing an Alex Hunter, and Alex Hunter would kind of switch language to English in the cockpit, which also, the language itself kind of helps because especially American English has this more like neutral position about who's the boss and who's not, but also have maybe a different culture. Do you really think that we should solve, this hierarchy issues by removing a pilot?
Absolutely not. I just think that that's an argument that people would put forward. If there's one person in the cockpit, then you're not going to have any decisions. But there's, the quick rebuttal to that is if you don't have anybody else to challenge bad decisions, then you have more disasters. Yeah. How many accidents have not happened because a first officer did speak up and say, I disagree with this action?
Yeah, well, they work together as well.
Yeah,
working together in terms of emergency. You have a huge checklist to go through, and you have to work. And we see a lot sadly, when you have accidents and when you listen to the voice recordings, you see how pilots are working together on making sure if everything is right to land a plane. So then again, this law for people that needs to be reassured would be only for short haul. It would not be for long haul, but still. The planes, because that's the other thing. Are the planes ready? Apparently, some of them are.
Yeah, the C series, which has not had an auspicious start to its life.
Yeah, to say the least.
But I think you found this article originally in a Canadian aeronautics journal that the C series was originally designed and conceived to be a single pilot aircraft, which is really interesting. I think there are quite a few airplanes, like the Pilatus PC-12, which is a propeller airplane, but it's a high-performance turbine executive aircraft, is absolutely flyable by one person. But this is a twin-engine jet airplane, passenger airplane that we've kind of been following its progress since it was still on the drawing board. It was designed to be a single-pilot airplane. Whether or not any operator would ever do that has yet to be seen. And in fact, because of the way that the regulations are set up in Canada, it can't be certified as a single engine airplane yet. But the technology and the way that the airplane was designed can accommodate that if the regulatory framework changes in the future, which I think is really interesting.
So, it might be actually a trend that is very early on, but at some point, I don't know, we'll see what happens. I'm sure, and again, I'm coming back to the economical aspect, I'm sure that some airlines, especially low cost, will be very happy to have a single pilot. No good news for the pilots. That's the sad bit. And for us, because it's kind of nice to have. I have nothing against that one day having a self-driving, self-flying plane or whatever, but there's this sort of culture that goes with having a pilot and having, by the way, and I'll continue with the story about pilots, but it was very interesting. I'm almost certain, on my way from New York to Oslo, I'm pretty certain they invited someone in the cockpit for landing.
I think that could get someone thrown in jail unless it was flight crew.
So the person, of course, it must have been that because the person, of course, was dressed normally. Oh, no, hold on. Actually, no, it was because I was jealous. It was actually when I was landing in Newark. Thanks to you, by the way, because I chose Newark because I wanted to see that New York skyline.
Yes, you got a spectacular view going.
And I was really happy to be on the correct side of the plane. So, they invited someone. So probably you're right. Probably must have been because there's no way, especially in the US, that you invite someone from like an Alex or Paul to the cockpit. I mean,
sadly.
love it. We would love it, but it doesn't happen anymore. But another article that goes into that direction, talking about pilots, it was a bit worrying, but I want to have your take. The title is actually self-explanatory. It says pilots are losing their flying skills, says U.S. report.
So yeah, this came from the U.S. Transportation Department, and it's a very detailed report. But the kind of takeaway is that American U.S. airline pilots aren't keeping up their actual flying skills because of the level of automation that's involved. So they're not ready and able to take control of an airplane if something happens, which is a little bit alarming. And I'm sure that the distillation of the report by the media is going to be a little bit alarmist.
Obviously.
But I can see why. They're not 100% sure how often pilots fly manually these days, which obviously you need to do to keep up those actual flying skills. And so the FAA have suggested to airlines that they tweak their training programs to keep the focus on manual flying skills, which it does make sense, right?
There were also the accident from Air France, was it 447, where the pilots completely understanding what the plane was telling them, and it is so it's a bit hard to judge, whether or not it's really the pilots are losing their skills or they just maybe need to be better trained to understand what the plane is telling them. It
exactly.
Could be any of those. Yeah, and since we mentioned I mentioned the German wings disaster of last year, although it's not completely related, I've also learned, still talking about pilots, that Germany is now implementing mandatory drug tests for pilots.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I'm surprised that it hasn't happened
exactly
before.
That was my first reaction. It was like, oh, wasn't that a thing already? Apparently, there'll be random testings. It's not as if, they'll have to be tested at every flight before every single flight, but I have no, honestly, knowledge of how it happens in other countries. And we're not talking about illegal drugs. We're even talking about, substances that can make you maybe feel a bit dizzy or fall asleep.
Yeah.
So, I was surprised as well. Talking about, sadly, another crash, the plane that disappeared, the MH370. So they haven't found the plane yet. They're still looking for it. It will take forever, apparently. It costs a lot of money. But interestingly, so they found a shipwreck in the zone they're looking for.
Yeah.
But the fun bit is, what we learn is that apparently that part of the ocean, that part of Earth, actually, they're looking, is less known than the moon. It's critical.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's the first time that we actually, because we're looking for that plane, that we actually are studying what happens. And suddenly they found these old shipwreck. It's fascinating that we are learning things through a sad story, which is the disappearance of that plane. I don't know do you think we'll ever find it?
I don't know. It seems to be less and less hopeful.
But I mean, it's a good thing that we keep looking. That's a part of what we do as humans, I guess. And talking about safety, so we talked about the pilots, we talked about sadly planes that crashed, but there was this story that when you and me read it, we're like, what?
I still can't figure out how this happened, but apparently after flying for 40 minutes, someone noticed the plane's door was open.
How did that happen?
It wasn't, I don't think it was for 40 minutes. There's no way, but it was a Jin Air, which is a subsidiary of Korean Air, was flying from Cebu in the Philippines to Busan in South Korea. It was a 767, I think. The pictures of a 767, but that doesn't necessarily, or 777. Anyway, they had reached 10,000 feet, which is about when you pressurize, and the flight staff heard a noise and realized the front left door was not fully shut.
What?
There are indicators
on
the flight deck that would have been going absolutely mental had this happened, because you can see there's like on the multifunction displays on the flight deck of any modern airplane, there is one diagram that shows the status of all the doors that you're looking at to see if the cargo doors have been closed and the passenger doors have been closed. How did this ever happen?
I don't know.
How did this happen?
I mean, this was a usual tabloid treatment, so we're not sure about what happened, and we didn't look. But I mean, when we read that title, I was like, no, this is not possible. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't get it. Maybe there's a further story that we haven't heard. It was not, like you said, it was not 40 minutes, but still. Air India has also had to turn a plane back. They cannot get a break. What was it?
There was a rat on the airplane. Multiple rats. I mean, this, yeah, again, like you say, Air India. I think if it had any other airline, everybody would have just gone, oh my God, that's it. Air India. People are like, oh,
All right. Yeah.
yeah. It's just
And still
crazy.
talking about animals, there was a Bangkok airport. There was a snake that was on the luggage cart baggage claim, and they had to apologize for it. Yeah, obviously there's a snake in the freaking. Oh my goodness! I mean, I wish these are fun stories. I mean, they don't change the world of air travel, but I still find them pretty funny to read.
So I actually realized at the bottom of my show notes that I found a theory about that Air airplane. A pilot on the wonderful avherald.com said, I would bet that the rig of the door might have been just off a little bit, which could have allowed one of the latch rollers on the door not to properly engage and would prevent the door from getting into its frame properly. And that in turn would prevent the airplane from pressurizing. However, the door warning switches would indicate a closed door on the flight deck, and the emergency slide would engage into its fitting with no issues. From inside the plane, all indications would be normal, and the door would seem to be closed to the crew. So you can see how the flight deck crew might have thought, of course, the doors are closed.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of popped when they tried to pressurize it. So,
well, yeah,
crazy.
But to reassure all the people that are listening to us that, are maybe afraid of flying, though I'm not sure that's our core audience, to be honest. No. 2015 was the safest year on record. So we said, of course, that it feels a bit scarier because especially of the terror things that have been happening in the last bit of 2015. But if you look at the statistics, and they matter, it's actually very safe to fly. So guys, keep flying. It's actually not too bad. Airlineratings.com, they do every year ratings about, what are the safest airlines. Qantas obviously comes on top like every single year because they've probably the oldest in terms of age and they haven't had any major accident ever. So they always come on top. But they've done another list as well. That's an interesting. I'll put the link in the show notes with the low cost, because there's always this kind of fear. Oh, low costs, it's low cost, so it's low maintenance. That's not true. First of all, most of the low costs have newer planes, very well maintained. So it's actually not true. There's also a list. Go check that list if you want to be reassured about your next destination. Talking about low cost, long haul is the kind of the holy grail everybody is looking at.
Thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And you mentioned WOW. So WOW is apparently introducing trips from San Francisco to Europe for $199. Wow. You know what? I will probably go to Iceland. So WOW is an Iceland-based airline. I'm probably go to Iceland for holidays, just a weekend. In a few months, so I'm gonna maybe fly them. I want to see what it's all about. What is WOW Air all about? And I'll let you guys know.
I'd be very interested to hear what it's like.
Which, by the way, makes me think that all these airlines. I was at both Oslo and Copenhagen. You know what? Which airline I saw the most? Norwegian.
They are growing like
crazy. All the ads were about them, and half of the aircrafts on the ground were them. So it's crazy, really. I haven't flown them yet, but I mean, I will definitely have to try because it's. They also offer like very, very, very competitive prices to the US and back for those who do these kind of routes. You found an app that's interesting.
Yeah, it's called Cedaroo, and I would love to hear from anybody in the airline industry what they think about this, but it allows you to swap seats with somebody else on your flight and get paid for it. So if they're stuck in the last row where the plane tapers and the seat doesn't recline, and for $20 you're willing to sit in it for 90 minutes, you now have this peer-to-peer marketplace where you can do that. And I want to hear from airlines because this sounds like it would be a bit of a nightmare. I
agree. I don't know. It has to be very, very well integrated because honestly, if people start swapping seats as soon as they arrive in the plane, that's going to be just, like you said, it also safety-wise in terms of we want to be sure who's passengers. Sometimes, they even shout in the PA system, keep your seats. You can switch seats after we take off. There's a reason for that, right? They want to be sure that everybody's in there, that everybody has their luggage is accounted for, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it could be interesting. Though, maybe people will say, okay, I have a crap seat. I want a better one. And another person says, I don't care about which seats. I just want to have a good deal. So the idea behind it is actually interesting. I don't know if it'll ever happen.
Yeah, and you would need a critical mass of people on every flight for it to be worthwhile, wouldn't you? So it'd be interesting to see
happens.
if they Yeah.
So I kept using all my, I mentioned that I think it was 2 episodes ago, all my travel apps, itinerary apps to check, TravelMate, et cetera, TripIt. So I'll keep using them this year, and I'll keep telling you about what I found, using them all concurrently, the 4 of them, almost 5 of them actually. 2 things. First, for the first time ever on TripIt Pro, it's a pro feature. So I'm flying, and you're going to love me for that, Alex. I'm going to fly for the first time in my life, Virgin America,
there you
LA
go.
to Las Vegas next week. And so I bought a flight. By the way, Alex, I must tell you, because it's the first time I book on Virgin America, what an amazing experience to book on their website. I've never seen something.
Yeah, they've done such a great job with it. It's the way that airline booking should be done. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm just a fan of the
amazing. It's honestly amazing. Guys, fly Virgin America just for that, because you have to try that. So I bought a ticket. Apparently the price went down, and TripIt says, "Oh, you could get a refund." And I was like, "Oh shit, a refund!" So I was thinking, "Oh, my flight is canceled or something." And actually, no. They were monitoring the price of my ticket, and they found that the ticket actually went down and said, "Okay, adding the canceling fee from your earlier flight plus buying the new flight could actually get you." And they say that pays you TripIt for an entire year, actually. So hey, here you go. So it's interesting that they do that.
That's a good way of doing it.
First time I see that kind of alert. And another tidbit about that, Uber, which is the transportation app, your personal chauffeur, is actually thinking of adding such travel features on their app. So basically, they would be the last mile, of course, or the first mile. You're going to the airport, or you're coming back, or you're going to the hotel and coming back. So to have a completely seamless experience, the way they already have, because they have agreements, for instance, with United. On United, the app, when you arrive, you can actually, within the app, book an Uber, but they want to do their own experience on their own app. So you have all your details, and as soon as you arrive, probably they also basically maybe could even track Alex plane when you land, and they say, okay,
that's
and
cool.
pre-book you, pre-order you an Uber or something. That's interesting. It could be actually very interesting. So they'd be a new player, and they have a lot of money, so it would be interesting to follow what they do.
Yeah.
You remember we talked about this crazy Skydeck thing, and you said, this is science fiction. And I said, this is science fiction.
Yeah.
But this is an article that kind of, what do you think? So is it science fiction or not?
Well, Skydeck is this bubble at the top of airplanes that allows you to go up and look, which we both said would be amazing. It's just never going to happen. So the guy that came up with it, they run a aeronautical engineering firm that comes up with solutions for the big players in the industry and retrofits airplanes, et cetera, et cetera. So being able to do this is not out of their wheelhouse. They know that it's possible. They know that's doable, and they are already talking to Airbus about it. And they said that they can absolutely do it as an OEM product. And they're ready as soon as they get an order.
Awesome. I'm not sure anyone's going to order, but maybe a VIP plane.
Now that, quite possibly, and it could be one of those things that the airlines use as a differentiator, right? I mean, we always thought that lounges and showers were never going to be a thing, and
actually, during the financial results of Airbus that we mentioned at the start, the CEO said that apparently, according to a study they've made, people were ready to pay 20% more just to fly an A380 over any other aircraft. People are looking for experiences, maybe, but that would be like the absolutely utmost experience. First of all, Alex and myself would like to test the residence on, Etihad or stuff like that.
Etihad,
and then we'll consider having this kind of bubble on the top of an airplane. So Etihad, if you're listening to us, you can invite us. We'll be very happy. Or Qatar as well. Whoever, guys, just invite us. We'll be very happy to test the product.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find time in our schedules.
Always for flying. We always do. One thing that happened also last week was CES, the big consumer electronic trade show in Vegas, actually. And we love our smart luggages, Alex and myself. I mean, we're never going to buy one. Actually, a friend of mine, Kei Shimada, and we'll invite him one of these days, just bought, the Blue Smart. He just got his, and he's flying a lot, like you and me. He's flying all the time, sometimes coach, sometimes business, sometimes, also emerging countries. So I told him, you fly with it for 3 months, and then you come on the show and you tell us what is actually the experience, first of the suitcase, but also security. What do they tell you? Do you have problems with the battery, et cetera, et cetera? So, but so there was one, and honestly, it's just... I mean, your reaction was so funny when I shared that on Facebook Messenger. So it's a suitcase that has all these smart things the others do, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to cover it, but it has one more thing. That one more thing is that it tracks you. So basically, when you're walking in an airport, the suitcase actually has a little engine and actually just follows you around.
How? Come on. Why would you do that? Why would you have
because
that?
you have, Alex, you need to have your 2 phones, so you need two hands free to whatever. Now, honestly, I just don't get it. Plus, it's a call to be stolen or something. Or like in the US, TSA will just smack you down and say, you're a threat to our national security or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll put the link in the show notes if you want to actually follow. There's a video. I'm not sure I want one, but good luck to these guys. Maybe it will be a thing. Maybe in 5 years, Alex and me will eat our hats and say, oh, well, we were wrong. Everybody has a suitcase that is following them. 2 last news about...
Yeah, not going to happen.
2 last news about airports. 2 airports we actually know well. First, Dubai, I know it very well. Concourse D is about to open. Alex just released his Attaché Travel show about Dubai. I encourage you to watch it. It's very nice. I just saw it this morning. We're recording today on January 15th of 2016. It's a great travel. So congrats, Alex. So you talk about the airport at the beginning. So I was recognizing the airport. I love it so much. I mean, not always. Concourse D is very different shape. The other shapes, these oblong type of shapes. This one is a more square. Apparently, It's very nice. They're looking, so if you live in Dubai, they're looking for people like you and me to actually go and test it. So basically, guinea pigs, and go and walk around and tell them what you think. If you see any things that don't work in terms of experience, I'll put the link in the show notes. And the second airport is Hong Kong. Alex's favorite airport in the world, maybe. And the new concourse was just inaugurated. It looks great. That means we need to go back and we need to cover it again.
Yes, I am trying to find excuses to go to Hong Kong always.
after Shanghai, it's next door.
Yeah, true. My kids will forget what I look like.
It's always next door because I'm finding this huge thing that we'll talk in the next episode. They like say, yeah, it's next door. Of course, I'll take the plane. Anyway, going to Oslo. So Oslo, I was there just last week. I've never actually been in Norway, so I cannot talk about Norway. I will visit. I've been in all the other Scandinavian countries, but not Norway. So I only know the airport. Alex has been to Oslo, so he'll be able to tell you a little bit more about what happens between the airport and the city. First of all, it's actually a very nice airport. I was surprised because I went online. I was looking for information about the airport. I went to reviews and stuff like that because I had time to lose in a lounge. And people were actually giving a very, very hard time to Oslo. That airport sucks. The staff is rude. And I was like, oh, why did I choose that airport? So I was going there with very low expectations. And it turns out it's actually a very, very good airport. I found it extremely efficient. The design, very Scandinavian, a lot of wood, a lot of, light. It was a very good experience. I didn't find the staff rude, so sorry, maybe it was my experience, but the staff was actually very nice with me. I didn't go into any fast track, whatever. There's one thing talking about fast track that I told you would love because you have kids. There's a family track. The family track overtakes everyone else at security. That's a great thing, right? So when you reach there, then the airport itself, lots of amenities. It's expensive, but because Scandinavian countries are expensive. The lounge I went to, because I have status, I told you I went to the SAS Gold Lounge, which is equivalent. So if you have gold status on Star Alliance, you can go. It's one of the best lounges I've ever seen because it's, it's not, of course, when we talk about lounges, we talk about Dubai, we talk about, Doha, we talk about this very big of Singapore. These lounges are massive and very well done. This is more like a subdued, again, Scandinavian, like not in your face, very, very good design, very well thought out. I really liked it. The very good thing, and then I'll let you talk, sorry, because I'm babbling, was when I was there, we were talking about Norway, and it was January, obviously, and I arrived, and it was 4 a.m. In the morning, and there was snow, and it was like really a very nice landing. I did a video. I hope to put it up at some point because you had all these, the trucks that are removing the snow from the taxiways where like there was a ballet of them, and you could just barely see their blinking orange lights. So it was wonderful. But then 4 hours later, when my other flight back to London was due, in 5 minutes, I could see the taxiway and the runway. In 5 minutes, and I don't see anything. It was snowing. It was incredible. I haven't done that in like 15 years. So some people know that my mother was from Finland. So I know these kind of conditions. But, they couldn't even push back. There was so much snow that...
In a country that has
the pilot had to run on PA and says, Sorry, because you could feel the plane kind of shaking, so you could feel they were trying to push it back, they couldn't. They were big, it was too slippery, so they, well, we'll have to sand the area. Sorry for the inconvenience. So they went to sand it. We were back, and then honestly, the taxiways, I couldn't see the taxiways. We were clearly advancing on snow. They went for a 10-minute de-icing, with that orange kind of liquid they put on the plane. It was absolutely fantastic. So just for that, I would say, try to go in Oslo, because this is, as an airline geek, it's really fun to have these kind of landings and takeoffs. So what about going to the city?
Yeah, it's surprisingly far out from the city, the airport. It's about 45 kilometers, but there's a bunch of different ways to get in, which is good. There's this high-speed train service called Fly to Get, which runs every 10 minutes. And I think it takes about 20 minutes to get into Oslo Central Station, which really is in the middle of Oslo.
Okay.
And that's definitely the best way to do it. There's a bus, and it's a little cheaper, but it takes a while because, 46 kilometers. It's not a short distance, but it is surprisingly far out. But you do get to go through this like beautiful Norwegian countryside to get to the airport. And as you said, I think the airport's really, really good. I think it's nice. And Oslo as a city is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I love Oslo, even if it's minus 400 degrees in the winter.
It was.
If you do go in the winter and it's sunny, take sunglasses. I've never experienced sun so bright in my life. But love
the
it.
one
Great
tip
city.
about the airport that you guys have to know. So Norway is part of Schengen. So you go into the airport, because I went out, I had 4 hours. So I just want to take some fresh air, very fresh, minus 10 degrees Celsius. Went back in very quickly, actually. But so I went through the normal process of getting into, there's a single terminal. So you go through the, security, I just said. What you don't know, though, is that the gates at the very end are the gates for non-Schengen and obviously then US, etc. And you don't expect, if you don't know it, they don't expect that there will be an additional immigration counter there. So a lot of people I see hang out in the main area of the airport, which like I did. But if you don't know that there's a second point, you might actually start to be stressed, because that second point is a bit long to clear. So beware if you are going UK, so non-Schengen country, of course, any other country in the world, at Oslo Airport, remember there's a second checkpoint if you want near the gates.
That is a good tip.
So very good airport, good for layovers. I didn't sleep there, but honestly, when it's minus 10 outside, you pretty much want to sleep in the airport. No, not there. There are lots of lounge areas and anything. So it's very nice airport. On that, we are going to race each other this that's going to be fun. You want to explain it?
Yeah, we're going to Tokyo. I am extremely excited. I've never been to Tokyo. I've been to the airport 20 years ago. And I'm going there to film an episode of Attaché, and it turns out that you're going to be there for the same time, so which is great because you lived in Tokyo for a long time, and I'm taking JAL. They're being kind enough to fly us out there, so a lot of thanks and kudos to JAL. And you're on ANA, and we realized that they depart at exactly the same time.
At exactly the same time and
arrive.
So basically, we'll be racing each other in disguise.
We're racing, and they both have Wi-Fi, so we'll be able to kind of egg each other on as we fly across Russia. But yeah, no, it should be cool. I'm looking forward to reporting back.
No problem. So most probably, for once, since the next airport we'll cover will be Haneda. We'll tell the story on the next episode.
Oh yeah.
On that, safe travels, everyone.
Take care.
On behalf of Layovers and the entire crew, we would like to thank you for joining us on this podcast today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on board again next week. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.